my biology beauties. Our next unit of work is coming from chapter 4, which is looking at survival through adaptations that organisms have, and also through the way that organisms are able to regulate and control what's happening in their bodies. So I'm just going to present the first few slides from our slideshow today to help you with your work. And the first is going to take you back to year 7 and back to year 9. So we're looking at environmental factors, and there's a definition there, the sum total of all the factors that affect an organism. So my year 9s are doing this at the moment, and their definition would also include the fact that this would include biotic and abiotic factors. So we've got a few images there that hopefully you're looking at and you're thinking about. I'm thinking the one in the middle is really cute. So biotic factors, maybe you remember that these are the living factors and would include things like competitors or competition, as we see there with those animals who are competing for that food. Collaboration, we could also say that that first one is an example of collaboration because they are working together to take down that poor little deer or whatever it is. And predators, we would also say that those animals are predators. So biotic factors are to do with living things and includes their behaviours like competition, like collaboration, working together, and like predation. Another biotic factor would also be disease-carrying organisms, so things like bacteria and viruses, and also things like mosquitoes, which are vectors and carry diseases from one organism to another. The abiotic things are the non-living factors. So what would this be? This would include things like the amount of light. So the plants in that third picture are relying on a certain amount of light. The pH of the soil, the texture of the soil, concentration of gases, how much water, how much shelter. So that little guy in the middle photo who's got a burrow dug into the soil, that would be an abiotic factor. This is a diagram that you're going to find confusing, so just have a little look at it. I'm going to read you through it. If something is optimum, it's the best. Optimus Prime, he's the best one of those transformers. Optimum range is the best. And if we have a look at our little diagram there, in the middle there's a bell curve, and in the middle of that it says organisms abundant. So there are lots of organisms in that centre bit where it says optimum tolerant range. So that's written up here, the arrow saying this is the optimum tolerance range, the best range for organisms to put up with whatever the environmental factor is. And within this optimum range, the curve goes up and most of the organisms are there. So this environmental gradient, this could be anything. So for example, this could be the pH of the soil. If the pH is low, that's not the optimum. If the pH is high, that's not the optimum. Somewhere in the middle, maybe a pH of 7, which is neutral, is the optimum range, and that's where you find most of the organisms growing. And we looked here on the side and we see that the population size is higher in this optimum range in the middle. On either side of that, we've got the lower limit of tolerance and the upper limit of tolerance. Down here is a zone of stress. So there's still a few organisms in here. The pH maybe is going down. They can cope with this lower pH. It's getting more acidic, but they don't really like it. And if it gets too low, zone of intolerance, nobody's living there. Same going up the other way. We've got a zone of stress up here as the pH is going up. Few organisms living there. But if it gets too high, there's a zone of intolerance, and we don't have any organisms living there at all. The population size is down really low. All right, so what do we need to take from here? We need to take that there will be an optimum tolerance range for a whole lot of environmental factors for all living things, and within that range, we will find lots of living things doing really well. Here's an example for you. The optimum range, the range within which an organism thrives. So this time we're looking at temperature. I'm trying not to go down too low with my pointy thing because it keeps popping up my little menu. So this is temperature. So rate of reaction here for reaction. This isn't you at all. I was thinking this was going to be body temperature. So this is looking at enzymes denaturing at high temperatures. All right, so denaturing means they die. So this is the rate of reaction. This is the temperature. And here's the optimum range. If we have a look here, where's the curve at the highest? It's highest here between 30 degrees and 50 degrees. And if we come down here from the peak to 40, we would say that the optimum temperature is here at 40 degrees. And I would say that in this range here, from 30 to 50, I would say that this is the optimum range. Here we're getting a zone of stress, aren't we, because the numbers are dropping off. And here we're getting a zone of stress. And if we come down here, there's a zone of intolerance. 60 degrees, they're dying. 0 degrees, they're dying. We don't see any organisms. Let's have a look at the next one. Got a couple of these. All right, another really busy slide. So let's just read it. Law of tolerance. I'm going to read it to you. The law of tolerance states that for each abiotic factor, so remember abiotic, non-living factor, an organism has a range of tolerance within which it can survive. All right, so here's our blue arrow. The blue arrow is saying this is the tolerance range. So from here to here, where the blue arrow is, the organism can survive. Beyond that, down here, the zone of death or avoidance, the zone of death or avoidance. What does that mean? If they are in this zone, they'll die, or they'll choose not to stay in this zone because it's not a good place to be. Right, so let's have a look. They're using the word niche. Don't worry about that. Niche is just like the little spot that you'd like to be. My niche at the moment is my bedroom. That's where I would like to be. It's early in the morning and I'm a little bit tired. A niche might be under the bark on a tree. A niche might be in a tree with a certain type of eucalyptus leaves, whatever. So again, here we've got our first example looking at pH. This is what I used before. So in the middle, around a pH of 7, that's the optimum range, but they can tolerate a certain range outside that. The other example would be temperature. Okay, if this is you, this might be 37 degrees. So the optimum range for your body temperature is 37 degrees. You can tolerate a little bit lower, you can tolerate a little bit higher. Here you're going to be in stress. Here you're going to be in stress. So you know if your temperature gets up to 38, 39 degrees, you're not good. If your temperature gets up to 45 degrees, you're dead. Okay? So optimum range, the best range for you to live. Tolerance range, you can cope with it. And on either side of that, it's going to cause death or organisms will leave. All right, a lot of ideas in there, but hopefully that's made some sense to you. All right, here we've got two graphs. So this time we're looking at the oxygen level in water. If we were in the classroom, I would give you 10 minutes to think about this and write something down, but I'm just going to work our way through it together here. So here's the environmental condition. It doesn't say specifically there what it is, but up the top I've told you this is oxygen levels, and we've got this black stripe fish, the top minnow. Its environmental tolerance range is somewhere here, okay? And if our oxygen levels sit here, the fish grows really well. This fish over here, the black tail shiner, has a different environmental condition. It prefers a curve that looks like this. So if we say that this is 0 oxygen and this is, I don't know how much oxygen's in water, let's say, 40% oxygen. Here it might be 20% oxygen is the perfect amount of oxygen for this fish, and you will find these fish thriving very well in that water. This is maybe 30% oxygen. You'll find these fish thriving in this water, but these fish are not going to like this condition as much.